Today we're going to look at the Allpowers S2000 Pro and its matching solar panel. It's not going to be a comfortable review, so if you're used to ones that are all about praise and happiness, stick around. This one's different. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the garden on a really disappointing July day, and perhaps a good day to test things like solar power. My name is Hugh, and together with the fantastic Fiona I run a small holding here in rural Lincolnshire. We're trying to be as self-reliant, self-sufficient as possible, and we've made a lot of videos about how we grow our own food, how we harvest rainwater, how we cut and split and season our own firewood and all those kind of things. And this year we're looking a lot about how we reduce our dependence on mains electricity, and specifically through solar power. And we've done a number of videos. The first one was a sort of introduction to solar power for people who'd sort of thought about it but didn't really understand it. We took an in-depth look at solar panels, and then we looked at portable power stations, which is a great way to sort of store and move around the power that solar panels create if you're doing it on a small scale. And I think as a result of those videos, a company called Allpowers reached out to us and asked if we would like to try their S2000 Pro portable power station and a solar panel to go with it. Now, we knew about them because we already owned a very small portable power station that they produced that we bought and paid for, and we use this small unit when we're out and about to do things like charge our phones, charge batteries for the cameras, etc. And it's proved to be excellent, so we were quite happy to review the S2000 Pro portable power station and panel. Now, full disclosure, it has been a highly problematic review. We had real problems with the first unit that they sent us, and we've encountered a number of problems with the ports, the layouts and other aspects of the setup. And we like our reviews to be positive, but today we're going to have to give you a warts and all view of this unit. So before we start, let's look at the panel which we used to begin with to charge up the portable power station. And I want to start on a positive note. All the specs are laid out and printed on the panel, and that is so important because I could be using this panel with any one of 4 portable power stations with different charge controllers, different battery setups, etc. And having that information printed on the unit is vital. Now, Allpowers described this as their lightweight folding solar panel. It weighs over 40 pounds. Now, there may be a definition of the word lightweight that actually covers that, but to me, this is a beast. It's really, really heavy for a folding solar panel. That's not necessarily a problem actually, because it does mean that it is stable on the ground and a bit of wind is not going to knock it over. And to be honest, you're never going to take a panel this size backpacking. It's going to come with you car camping, caravan camping, or be used for emergency power in a home situation. So if it's a bit heavier, that need not be a problem. But it's important to be honest, and a 40-pound unit is not lightweight. Let's go and set it up, take a look at it. So the panel comes in a number of parts. It's got 5 separate folding panels, and it's a big old size. On the back there are fold out legs that are held down with Velcro, but then will allow you to prop that panel securely up. What we wanted to do, because this is described as a solar generator, was to charge the Allpowers S2000 Pro first from the panel that they supplied to find out if it worked. Well, as you can see, unfolded, it's a beast, but 400 watt panels are big. They have to be to absorb enough energy to produce 400 watts. So this has 5 separate panels, each of which has a leg behind it that's velcroed to the body, but also on elastics. You can adjust the angle of the panels to really catch the sun at 90 degrees, which is what you want it to do. You want it more upright in the winter when the sun's low to the horizon, and more laid back in the summer when the sun's higher in the sky. We tested it on one of those lovely English sunny days where what you're getting is bright sunshine some of the time, but those lovely white puffy clouds moving in front of the sun, causing a bit of overcast, giving it a variety of conditions. And I am delighted to report that it actually did produce 400 watts in ideal conditions. A lot of the time with the bright sun on it, it was producing between 300 and 400, which is good. That's good performance. It's performing within its design parameters. When the clouds were in front of the sun, 1 to 200 watts was the norm, and again on a day like that, that's what I would expect to get in overcast conditions. And that's why you want generally bigger panels for your solar generators, because you're not always going to have ideal sunny conditions in which to recharge them. Now, the leads that are contained in a good pouch on the outside of this are MC4 output leads. That's geekery. But what you need to know is that's the standard output leads for solar panels. So this panel can be, with the appropriate adapters, made to work with almost anything, and that's the important point. It'll be very, very adaptable, and it includes an adapter lead with an XT60 plug on it, which goes straight into the Allpowers S2000 Pro solar generator. So yes, it's compatible with that, but it's also compatible with almost any other type of power bank that you might want to use it with. It's compatible with charge controllers, with batteries, etc. So overall, it performed as it was described. It is heavier than they let on, although they give you the weight, but they describe it as lightweight, and honestly it isn't. But it's versatile, it's well supported, it's stable on the ground, and it charges as it should. Right, let's take a look at this somewhat problematic S2000 Pro Power Station. First things first, comes with a complimentary case, and I really like that. I think all of these units should come with a minimum of a dust cover and preferably a waterproof case, and this is one of the better designed ones that I've seen. It's got a Velcro flap on the top, and it's got a heavy waterproof base on the bottom, which would mean if you set it down on something like wet grass, that's not going to be a problem. It also comes with a zip-up pouch, and in that zip-up pouch are two cables. A standard, what we in the UK used to call a kettle lead, plugs into the back of the unit to recharge from the mains, and it charges remarkably quickly, 1 to 2 hours, fully recharged from flat. Then you get one of these. This is for a 12-volt socket in a car, and it plugs into the port that I would normally use for a solar panel on the front of the unit. Now, it's important to think about how long would it take this unit to recharge. Now, your average 12-volt socket in a car is 12 volts and probably 10 to 13 amps, but let's say 10, so it's putting out 120 watts. This unit stores 1500 watt hours of power. So at 120 watts to charge it up, it's going to take 12 hours charging it from the 12-volt socket in your vehicle. So unless you're going on an incredibly long journey, and I suspect in the UK, if you set off from Land's End, you'd certainly be in Scotland before this unit was fully charged in your vehicle. So you might throw a bit of power into this, but you're not going to fully recharge this unit from your vehicle unless you're traveling abroad or on incredibly long distances. Now, this unit, as I say, does store 1500 watt hours of power, and that's a little bit less than some of the other units I've got. Most of the ones I've got are around the 2000 watt hours. You can get units that are smaller, you can get units that are bigger. The one advantage that this does give you, being 1500 watt hours, is it is relatively lightweight. Weighs just under 15 kilos, and I found when using this with mains power tools that it's really easy just to pick it up and move it around if I'm doing something like cutting hedges because of its lightweight nature. It's got two what appear to be very robust handles, and it's quite easy to move around. In terms of power output, it can put out 2,400 watts at a time with a higher surge, I think about 4,000 watts, so it should run most power tools with ease. Let's take a quick look at me testing that out with some of my mains power tools. This is a 2000 watt chainsaw, runs perfectly happily on other 2000 watt rated power stations. The S2000 Pro is rated for 2400 watts with a 4000 watt surge. Let's see what happens when I turn on the chainsaw. Occasional jerk to the chain, and then the unit goes into what I think is overload mode. It certainly won't run this chainsaw. So I'm not sure what its maximum output is, but I don't believe it to be the rated 2400 watt. I'm quite intrigued why this unit tripped out on that electric chainsaw, which is only rated at 2000 watts. So I plugged the chainsaw into this. This is a smart plug that rates and registers and monitors current drawn. And with the blade free spinning as it was in the test on the S2000 Pro, that unit reports that the electric chainsaw is drawing under 1500 watts. So there's no reason that this unit shouldn't be able to cope with it. So I wanted to do another little test just to find out. So that is a 2000 watt fan heater. Let's turn it on and see what happens. And the unit now shows it is supplying just under 2000 watts. So it clearly can supply the right amount of power, but for some reason it cannot handle that electric chainsaw. Once I'd used some mains power tools to try out this unit, I thought, right, the second thing then we've got to try is recharging it on the mains. Does it charge well? Does it charge quickly? And all of that sort of thing. So I took the standard kettle lead, and there's the socket on the back of the unit, which is where I want the mains charging socket. Plugged that kettle lead in, put it into the main socket in the kitchen and turned it on. At which point I tripped out the entire socket ring main for the downstairs of the house. The RCD's blew, which surprised me quite a lot. RCD, residual current device, it blows if there is a short in a unit. So being cautious, I took the unit outside. I sat it on a rubber mat on some wood chip to make sure it was thoroughly insulated, plugged it in, plugged it into an external RCD device, which is one of those things you should always use when you're using things like mains hedge trimmers in case you cut through the cable. Plugged that into a second RCD device at the end of an extension reel and turned it on. And it blew all three RCD devices. It tripped the one that this was plugged into, the one in the main socket, and it tripped the RCD on the main socket itself. So it clearly had quite a major short in this device. So what I had to do was contact Allpowers and say, you know, do you want me to go ahead with this video? Because that's a bit of a concern. And they said, yeah, we'll send you another one, send it back. So that's what I did. So I sent the dodgy unit back, the one with the fault. I received a replacement. Of course, first thing you do when you get a replacement is you think, well, I better see if the fault exists on this one. So I plugged the unit in, turned it on, and it began to charge without tripping anything out. So that was good. But I did notice that the fan was ever so noisy. That worried me, but I thought, well, it's charging. If I'm using it camping, it won't be charging. So let's turn the power off, but turn the output on for the sockets and see what it sounds like then. So once the unit was powered on, even when it wasn't charging, that mains fan is very noisy. And for me, that's a concern. If I wanted to use this, for example, to have a reading light on in a tent, to be charging other devices in a tent, I don't want to be listening to a fan howling away. And this does have one of the noisiest fans I've ever heard when it's running AC mains power. So we looked at the charging from the mains on the back of the unit. Let's take a look at the front of the unit. And there are clusters of output ports on the front of the unit. There are 4 230 volt mains output sockets. There are a number of USB-A and USB-C sockets. There is a 12 volt car type output socket, and there is what for now I'm going to refer to as a mystery socket, but we'll look at them in those sorts of clusters and understand what they are, what they're for, and whether they work well. First things first, there are 4 AC 230 volt UK mains sockets here, and that's important, and we're going to come on to that because this unit's made for a variety of countries, and obviously they have to set the sockets up in a way that's appropriate for each country. So in order to use these, you have to turn on the AC power, and that's because the inverter that produces AC power draws power itself. So if you have them permanently turned on, you will discharge your batteries. So only turn that on when you need it, turn it off when you don't. You plug into the socket and it works just like any other plug. But when you've finished with it, unplug your device, hold down the AC button until the little icon that tells you AC is working turns itself off, and that way you don't run your batteries down. After we looked at the mains, we'll look at this. This is a standard 12 volt socket, the sort you get in your vehicle. Now, in order to use that, you need to turn on DC power, which is this button, one quick press, and that's DC power turned on. Again, turn it off when you're not using it, and then we're going to plug in a 12 volt fridge to show it working. And I will invite you to look at, you get to see on the screen how much power is being drawn out, and you can also see how long the unit will run before it needs to recharge. That's good. Let's talk USB ports. There are 6 of them on here. There are 2 USB-C and 4 USB-A. To use them, you've got to turn the DC on. The 2 USB-C ports are listed as being PD. That stands for power delivery, and that's important. A lot of modern things like laptops and tablets need USB-C PD power delivery to run them. So let's see if these ones work. And very quickly you can see the power output rises up as this laptop is running from the PD socket. Let's test the USB-A, but first there is a problem with the USB-A. They apparently have some QC, quick charge, the more modern version, QC3, in these sockets. In one place in the instructions it says there are 4 QC3 sockets. In another place it says sockets 1 and 3 are QC3, but if you plug something in the other sockets they stop being QC3. Generally, the instructions have not been translated very clearly and the sockets have not been labelled very well. And that's something that Allpowers needs to pay attention to so that we can use the device more appropriately. But let's try one of the sockets that we know are QC3 and see if it will run my phone. It definitely does. You watch the power output leap up because with QC3 I can charge my phone with a higher amount of power so it recharges more quickly. So it definitely works, but it wants clearing up in the labelling and the instructions. At the bottom right of the assembly we've got a socket. Now that is the power in socket for either car charging or solar panels. I prefer the power in sockets on the back where they put the mains power in socket, but it doesn't really matter where it is. And it takes these XT60 plugs, which are relatively standard for power in to things like power stations. So again, standard plugs are good. Now this socket can accept up to 650 watts of solar power in, and that's sort of mid-range. Personally, I would like to see 800 watt. And the reason for that is the largest folding panels, generally freestanding ones, come in around about 400 watt. You can get 600 watt ones, but generally they need to be hung on the side of a vehicle, etc. And as I've said before, those panels don't work that efficiently in the winter when the sun is low and it's very overcast. And you can run 2 of those together to charge up one of these units. And given that 400 watts is a large freestanding panel, the ability to run 800 watts into this unit would be handy. But 650 watts is better than many. Okay, this is a serious bit, and it's a bit that causes me quite pronounced concerns. Let's talk about this mystery socket. So I know a lot of other people in the UK have reviewed this unit and they've gone, there's an RV socket on there, I won't use it, I'm not worried about it. But that's not how we do reviews. If we review a product, we're going to look at all the aspects of it, make sure it's working properly, make sure it functions as it should. So I looked into that socket, and it's a TT30 socket, which is, it's labelled as an RV, recreational vehicle socket, and it's the type of socket that Americans that use big motor caravans and ordinary tow behind trailer caravans use when they get to a campsite to hook their van up to mains power. It is clearly labelled as 125 volt and 30 amp. Now that gave me some pause. I mean, firstly, we know that this is a UK specified unit. Its mains output plugs along the top are UK only 3-pin plugs. So do UK caravanners use TT30 sockets? Well, no, they don't. This is the type of socket that we use to hook motor caravans and caravans up to mains power in campsites. And it's a different configuration, and it's designed for 230 volt. So that also got me thinking about, well, if that's labelled as 125 volt, we know that the main sockets are running through an inverter that's putting out 230 volts. So if they included a second inverter that's putting out 110 or 125 volt, or is the socket dead, or is it not running what it should run? So what I then did was look up the specification, and we've even bought the appropriate kind of plug to check the polarities and the wirings, and I put a multimeter into that socket to read what it's putting out. And that socket is putting out 230 volt on that is specified and labelled as 125 volt, and that worries me. It worries me partly because you should never have the wrong voltage coming out of a socket, but it also worries me because in the UK tradesmen often use 110 volt tools so that there is no mix up with power being on or off on site. They all run them through a 110 transformer. And I can see a world where a tradesman would buy one of these sockets and could wire up a 110 volt trade tool, plug it into that and cause real damage because he wouldn't know that what it was actually going to put out is 230 volt. For me, putting the wrong voltage out of a socket that is clearly labelled is a very big no-no. But there are three other aspects that I'm really interested in with portable power stations that I want to talk to you about and tell you how they apply to this S2000 Pro unit. The first one is, can I add more batteries to it? Some of these, the more sophisticated ones, have ports in the back where you can plug in more storage and extend the amount of time the unit can run and the amount of electricity that it can store. The S2000 Pro doesn't have those. You cannot extend this unit. It is what it is. Second one is, can I run it as a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply? I really like to do that. We run incubators to incubate chicken eggs, and the contents are incredibly valuable. And with something that will work as an uninterruptible power supply, what we can do is plug the incubator into the portable power station, plug the mains also into the portable power station, and then in the event of a power cut, the portable power station takes over and will run the incubator until the mains is re-established. And that can save us an absolute fortune. When it comes to the S2000 Pro, I don't know if I can do that, because the website from Allpowers says I shouldn't, and the manual says that I can. So you tell me. The third aspect of it is, does it have an app to control it? Again, many of these units have an app in which you can configure the unit and do various functions. The S2000 Pro does have an app, but it's a Bluetooth app, not a Wi-Fi app. So you've got to be really right beside the unit in order to use it, and it doesn't tell you anything or give you any functionality that isn't accessible from the screen that you stood beside. So I don't think it really adds anything to the experience. Right, time to sum up. First things first, let's do the good news bit. The solar panel, the 400 watt Allpowers solar panel, performed admirably. No, it's not lightweight, but you know what? It's stable in use, it's really, really solid, it's easy to put up, it performed to a full 400 watts, and I wouldn't hesitate to buy one. I thought it was great. The S2000 Pro, I think you probably know where we're going with this, is not, I'm afraid at the moment, a unit I could recommend. The first one had a significant electrical fault in it. It's actually got a port that's mislabeled and says it's at a different voltage than it actually is. And for me, that's really not a good thing at all. There's a number of other minor issues. There's a lot of contradictions in the instructions, whether it be on whether it can run as a UPS or how many QC ports it's got. And various places say one thing and various places say another. Or there's even no clear instructions whatsoever. The fan, I think, is noisy. I think the labelling of some of the ports could be improved. I found the app frankly pointless, and I didn't find the fact that it wouldn't run some devices like the electric chainsaw that are well within its parameters. That again troubles me greatly. Now, I think the unit could be improved actually by trying to make it less of all things to all men. Just get rid of this pointless RV port, get rid of the Bluetooth part of the app, put a quieter fan in it and do fewer things but do them really well, and this would be a small, solid, well-performing unit, and that would be my recommendation to Allpowers. I don't like leaving negative reviews, but above all else, we want our channel to be honest for you, our viewers, and that's what we've tried to be today. If you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. If If you've got any questions about this, about any of our other solar panel videos, or about any aspect of self-sufficient living, leave us a comment down below and we'll either answer them in the comments or we'll make a special video to try and address that particular query. And if you want to see those videos and everything else we do, just tap on subscribe down there and hit the bell next to it. It's a completely free service, but you get told every time we upload a new video. For today, thanks for joining us. Come back and see us soon. Take care.